Hi, everybody. My name is Jeremy, and welcome to this next chapter in our XR Remake Series. This past week on our social media channels, we posted a video where we recreated some user interactions from a popular VR game called Demeo. And we recreated those interactions in ShapesXR to show how you can use ShapesXR to prototype out different aspects of VR games. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the game, it's a really fun tabletop VR game. But there is a place that you can go in the game that's kind of like a hub where users can hang out and get to know each other. And once you go to that hub, there is the option for a changing room. And you can go into the changing room and you can change the look of your avatar. You can put a t-shirt on, change the color of the t-shirt. You can decide what graphic you want to wear, et cetera, et cetera. So we decided to look at that specific interaction and rebuild it out in ShapesXR. So that's what we're going to do today. So let me go ahead and activate our stages system in Shapes by just pushing up on my left thumbstick. And here's all the different stages, kind of works like slides in a PowerPoint presentation. And just using my thumbstick, toggling back left and right, I can go back through the stages so you can see how something progresses over time. So this is how the interaction works. The user lowers their hand, and they're given this teleport UI. And then by moving their hand, they can put that UI anywhere they want. And then in the game, when you move the UI close to the door highlights, and then you release your thumbstick and you're teleported into the changing room. So let's go ahead and go in here. And so you're going to spawn right about here. You see your reflection in the mirror, and you can choose what graphic you want on the t-shirt and the color, and you can also choose your body type. So this is how that interaction works. You lower your hand, and then as you hover over each of the t-shirts, the t-shirt enlarges. And then when you make a selection, the t-shirt highlights, and you'll also notice the graphic up on the shirt in the mirror changes as well. And then you can go up here to the color palette and choose the color of your t-shirt. So in this case, the user chooses black. So all the t-shirts on the table turn black, and so does the t-shirt in the reflection. And then lastly, you can choose your body type. So come up here. Again, you hover over them, they enlarge, you select, it highlights, and you can see the body shape in the mirror changes as well. So let's go ahead and build out this prototype in ShapesXR so you can see how I did it. All right, to save time, I'm not going to build out the whole environment. So everything you see in this room was created just using basic shapes in ShapesXR. So let's start with something simple and fun, this curtain here. How did I build out this curtain? So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that so we can build that from scratch. So I just access the Shapes menu with my Shapes button on my non-dominant hand. And I'm going to come to this shape icon right here. And I'm going to choose this cylinder. So to bring that into the environment, I'm going to use my grip button. So I just point at it, use my grip button, and I bring it in. And I'm going to go ahead and turn on my world grid by pushing this button here. You can see I've got these dots in the air I can snap to now. And I'm just going to snap it to just any dot just so that it's aligned with the environment. And then by holding down on my trigger button on my left hand, my right hand automatically goes into gizmo mode. So you can see when I hold down on that trigger, the UI on my right hand changes. And this is just an easy way to toggle over to gizmo mode. So I'm going to use my trigger button now on my right hand while I'm still holding down this button and select the object so that we have the gizmo. And I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to scale this up a little bit. Go ahead and move that over here and just start kind of building out my curtain. And we'll go ahead and color this red. Then I'm going to go ahead and flatten this a little bit using the gizmo. And then I'm just going to come in here and grab this arrow with my grip button. And while I'm moving it along the axis, I'm going to push my duplication button. And that's that button there with the box with the plus sign in it. I'm just going to put some random shapes just kind of along here. Then I'm going to come in here, duplicate that one again. And there you have it. All right, I'm going to go ahead and select all of these. And then I'm going to come in here and touch the selection. And you see I've got this button now that has a box on top of a box. That's the grouping button. So I'm going to click that. My objects are now grouped together, and I can pick them up and treat them like one solid object. All right, so the next thing we're going to build is we're going to build out this teleport UI. So just again, using basic shapes, we're going to put that together really quickly. So just follow along. All right, so to do that, I'm going to come in here to my basic shapes. I'm going to choose this cube here, and I'm going to just create a little bit of a rectangle here. That's going to serve as the square part of this, user interface. And then I'm going to come in here to my general settings by hitting my hamburger menu, general settings. And I already have it selected here, but choose Object Snapping. And when Object Snapping is selected, let me show you how this works. If you notice when I touch this object, I have these spheres. They're in the corners and the centers of the edges and the centers of the faces. These are grab points. So let me duplicate this here. And with the Snap to Object feature on, I can snap grab points to grab points. So I can grab this corner here, and I can snap it to the grab point on the other object. So let's go ahead and create our full square here. All right, so we've got the beginning of a square here. So I want these sides to be flush with each other. So I'm going to use our Snap to Surface feature. So I'm going to go ahead and select this here. We've got our scale gizmo pulled up. I'm going to grab this corner here. And then you'll notice when I move this side close to this adjacent side, I've got this line that appears between my icon and then a circle appears on the surface. As soon as that surface appears, that circle appears, I hit this button here, this arrow pointing to the line, and my surface snaps. So I'm going to come in here and do that with all the surfaces to create our square. And then this had a transparency look to it. So I'm going to come down here to my color menu, and I'm going to select the same blue color. I'm going to do additive, but I'm going to bring the alpha channel way down, and then I'm going to color these. And then the top two here, this is going to be the arrow. I'm going to bring up my alpha channel a little bit and make those a little bit of a darker color. And so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on my snapping world grid, and I'm going to group these together. Grab the center of the object, and I'm going to snap it to a point, again, just to keep things aligned. And I'm going to come in here to my shapes, UI elements, choose this shape here. I'm going to go ahead and just use my thumbstick to enlarge that a little bit. And then I'm going to snap the center of this to a point, and then once again, use the Snap to Surface feature to make these all the same dimension. And I'm going to grab it in the center, snap back to original position, duplicate. Grab the center again and snap to that point. And select both of these, go over to our classic gizmo. I can rotate these now, so I'm going to snap it to 0, duplicate, and then rotate it 90 degrees. So there we have our basic interface. I'm going to go ahead and select everything again, group it together, grab it, shrink it down a little bit, and snap it to the floor. All right, so there we go. And now we need sort of the beam that appears between the teleport location and the user's hand. So to do that, I'm going to come into my shapes here and my UI elements, and I'm going to choose this shape here. This is a curved screen. I'm going to go ahead and actually align this back to a center point on the grid. Do the same here, just so that everything's centered up. And then I'm going to turn on my classic gizmo and start making the beam. All right, so there we have our teleportation beam. All right, so for this next part of the demo, I'm going to show you how I built out the t-shirts. So the t-shirts look something like this. So let's go ahead and build those out really quickly. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and choose my color. I'm going to choose purple and go back up to my shapes. And I'm going to use this cube here with the rounded corners. So I'm going to bring that in. I'm going to snap that to the world grid again. And then using my scale gizmo, I'm going to make our rectangle shape for our t-shirt. I'm going to grab it in the center here, and I'm going to snap the center of the object to, again, just one of the random dots in the air, just so that my object is centered on one of those dots. All right, so now I need to create the opening in the top of the t-shirt. So to do that, I'm going to come in here, select the color black, and then I'm going to use this half circle here. I'm going to grab it in the center, and I'm going to align the center of that object with that same center dot that I aligned this purple rectangle with. And then using the gizmo, I'm going to come in here, the scale gizmo. Shrink that up a little bit, make it a little bit bigger there. And then I'm going to toggle over to the move gizmo by touching one of the handles and moving my thumbstick to the left. It's a quick way to toggle through your different gizmo modes. And then there you go. We've got our first t-shirt. Now we need 2 rows of 8 t-shirts. So I want to show you a little trick that I use to evenly space things apart. Now there are lots of ways you can do that in Shapes. You can snap things to the world grid. We have a custom step that you can use to duplicate things along a line and make sure everything's equally spaced apart. But this is just a little trick that I use when I want to create things with spaces in between them, like buttons on a UI, and I want them to be evenly spaced. So to demonstrate this, I'm going to come down here, select a different color just so that you can clearly see what I'm doing. I'm going to grab this cube here, and then I'm going to use our snap to surface feature. And the snap to surface feature, if you notice, let me turn the world grid off here. If you notice when I move this towards the object, you see that line that's appearing between the 2 objects? This is when I'm activating my snap to surface mode. And you'll notice as I continue to move it, eventually a circle appears on the purple object there. As soon as that circle appears, I hit this top button on my controller. It looks like an upside down T. That's the snap to surface button. So I'm going to move it there. Circle appears. Boom. I'm snapped to the surface now. And so I'm going to release and then activate the gizmo on this. Again, using my thumbstick, I want the scale gizmo. So I'm going to touch one of the handles and just toggle over to the scale gizmo. And then I'm going to create some space in between my 2 objects. Going to go ahead and bring that out a little bit. That'll make sense why I did that here in just a second. And then I'm going to select all 3 objects, toggle over to my move gizmo. I'm going to grab this far corner over here. And then while I'm moving it along the axis, I'm going to use my duplication button. So I'm going to duplicate. And then now I'm going to use that same snap to surface feature. So I move this over. You can see I get that circle on that yellow, that orange square there. Hit the snap to surface feature. And then I snap, hit the duplicate button. And I'm still in that snap mode. And I can just duplicate. That's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then I can select my space holders there and get rid of them. And now you see I've got my 8 t-shirts all lined up. And then I'm going to select all these again and duplicate those. And this one I'm just going to eyeball. And I'll select all these again and group them. All right, so I've got this all grouped together now. And then using my thumbstick, while I'm holding an object, any object you're holding in Shapes, you can move your thumbstick to the left or the right to scale it up and down. So I'm going to come over here to the table, and I'm going to snap it to the surface of the table. And then I'm going to use that thumbstick and scale it right about where I want. That looks good. And release. So there, I've got my 2 rows of 8 t-shirts. So to add a little production design to the prototype, I went into Procreate on my iPad, and I quickly drew out some of the t-shirt icons so that I could bring them into Shapes. So I drew them in Procreate and then exported them as PNGs. And then I went to shapes.app. And if you go to shapes.app, you can very quickly link your Meta account to ShapesXR, and you're given some cloud space. And anything you upload to that cloud space that's files we support, when you come back into ShapesXR, those files will be available for you to use. So to access those elements, I just press the Shapes button on my non-dominant hand. I choose the Shapes icon here. I come down to the bottom right-hand corner, this box with the arrow pointing into it, with the import menu. And all the assets that I've uploaded to my dashboard are here ready for me to use. So I've got these PNGs labeled as t-shirts here. Those are the graphics we're going to use. So I'm just going to position myself here and just bring each one in. And I'll worry about scaling those in a little bit. All right, so I've got all my elements here. And this is another little trick I want to show you. So I want to make sure that they're all the right scale. And I want to scale them all together. So I'm going to move Hunter over here. And then I'm going to select every one of these. And just like our t-shirts, when I pick these up, I can move my thumbstick left and right to scale them up and down. And I selected them all just so I'm scaling them all the same. So I'm going to come over here with Hunter, and I'm going to get this about where I want it. So that looks good right there. So now I know all of my elements are at the right scale. And then I can just come in and I can start using the Snap to Surface feature and start adding my graphics. And there we have our t-shirts. All right, so if you remember in the prototype, when a particular t-shirt is selected, it has a yellow border around it. So let's go ahead and simulate that. So to begin with, I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this stage, just so we've got 2 versions. So I'm going to come up here and stage 1, that's the stage we're on right now, I'm just going to hit duplicate. And now when I toggle back and forth between stage 1 and 2, you can see that they're exactly the same. So I'm going to go to stage 2, and this is where we're going to build out the highlight. So we're going to highlight this dragon's head t-shirt because that's what's on our model up there. Since we already have a shape built, I'm going to go ahead and use the shape that we already have there. But the first thing that I need to do, if you remember, I grouped these t-shirts together. So I'm going to come in here and just hit my same button to ungroup. So now everything's ungrouped. And then I'm going to select this t-shirt here. And I'm going to snap it back to its original position. You see that floating white ring along the line? If I align my controller with that, it snaps back into the position that I just moved it from. So I'm going to snap it to its position, hit the duplicate button, and then move it up. So now I've got it back in its original position plus a duplicate. I'm going to color this duplicate yellow. And then I'm going to toggle over to our classic gizmo, and I'm going to just enlarge this just a little bit, and then lower that into position. And then I'm going to toggle over to our scale gizmo here. Just tighten that up a little bit. There we go. And then using yellow, I'm going to color that top part of the t-shirt as well. So now we have a t-shirt highlighted. And so if I go back to my stages menu, if I go back to stage 1, that's the original stage, and stage 2 shows the button or the t-shirt highlighted. So this is how we use the stages system to show progression over time. Now, if you remember in the prototype, when the user hovered over a t-shirt, the t-shirt slightly enlarged to show that it was highlighted. So let's go ahead and prototype that out as well. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate stage 2. And on stage 3 now, again, stage 2 and 3 are the same. On stage 3, I'm going to select this t-shirt here, and I'm going to slightly enlarge it. So now when I go back and forth between stage 2 and 3, you can see the t-shirt enlarging, and then I'm going to do the same on these two over here. All right, so our prototype's coming together. User selects the dragon head t-shirt and it highlights, and then we hover over the different t-shirts and they enlarge. All right, so let's go ahead and show how that interaction is going to work so that when I pass this off to my developer, they know how to code it. So in this VR experience, users actually see their hands in space. So we're going to go into our shapes menu here, and we're going to choose some actual hands to use in our prototype. So I'm going to choose a left hand and a right hand right here that we'll use to demonstrate how users interact. So let's go ahead and I'm going to turn on my world grid, again, just so I can have this aligned with the world. And then we need a laser pointer. So I'm going to come in here with this shape here, the cylinder again, and I'm going to use this to make a laser pointer. Make that really small. Enlarge that out a little bit. All right, so we've got a laser pointer there. And then for now, I'm just going to group these together. Turn off my world grid here so that I can show where the user is pointing. All right, so let's come in here and let's go ahead and activate our stages system again. So we've got this first one highlighted here. So I'm going to duplicate. While I'm holding this, I'm going to duplicate it. Got that there. And then I'm going to go over to stage 4. You'll notice whatever I'm holding in my hand goes with me from stage to stage. So we move to stage 4. I now have this other hand. I can point at this one now, duplicate that, and then move to the next stage and duplicate that. So now we've got a user moving their hand to select. Now in the game, when the laser pointer is pointed at the t-shirt, there's a tiny little ball at the end of the laser pointer. So let's go ahead and add that as well. So I'm going to, first of all, come in here and I'm going to leave this grouped, but I want to open the group up so I can edit it. So I'm going to touch the group. I'm going to hit this bottom button that looks like an open box. My objects are still grouped together, but I can edit things within the group. So I'm going to come in here and select this, go to my scale gizmo here, and I'm going to bring that all the way to the surface. All right. And then I'm going to bring this sphere here. I'm just going to eyeball this. I'm going to put that right there. And there we have it. All right. So now when we move through the prototype, the laser pointer's actually touching. And there you have it. And then once again, using our stages system, I can advance through the stages to show progression over time and how the prototype and interactions are supposed to work. All right, I hope that was helpful for you all. Thanks for joining us. I look forward to seeing you in our next quick tutorial.